Okay, hello everybody. In this video, we're going to talk about a couple of things that have to do with arrays. And we're going to talk about 1D arrays, an initializer list, and we're going to talk about 2D arrays, and we're going to talk about some things that sometimes the book does not say. You just need to practice, and you just need to try them on your IDE in order to work. Okay, so first of all, let's start with we talked about this on our previous video, and is declaring and initializing a list. I'm sorry, an array. We're gonna initialize 1D array, and we're gonna initialize a 2D array. Let's start with an integer array. Okay, let's start with an integer array. Of 5 elements. What I'm saying here is that I'm making an array of 5 elements. Okay? Okay, do not forget the int. Now I'm going to make the character array also 5 elements. And I'm going to make a string array. That way we know that we can make all types of arrays with elements in each spot, or in each index of the array. Okay? Okay, and in this case we are going to have a new array. We call it array 4, and we can initialize it right from the very beginning with all the elements inside the array. So right here I'm creating an array of integer numbers with all the elements inside the array. Okay? Okay, the first thing we're going to learn is that what's inside an array before you actually put elements inside. If I wanted to print out array number 4, I would just use a for loop or an enhanced for loop. Okay? But what does it show an array that does not have elements? So let's talk about the array 1, or array. Okay? So let's make a for loop. Okay, we create a for loop of a one. We're talking about 1D arrays, and we're gonna add and see what it shows on each position of my array. So what I'm doing is that I am creating I am printing out each position of the array I. And here I should see all my array. And I'm going to see it this way. I'm going to see a column. If I want to create a line, I would want to do this to create a line and see my array. I think that you already know what I'm talking about. Okay? And we'll see what it does. Okay? Okay, so as I was saying, when we have this, we are going to print the elements in array in position I. It is important that we understand what is the position that we are going to establish for each of the elements. So this will print all the elements of this array that we have over here. So the conclusion is that when you create or declare an array of n amount of elements, and you do not insert any elements in the array, then you will get a bunch of zeros. Okay, so you get a zeros if it's an integer array. So what would happen if I say array 2? Let's say we're going to do it with array 2. What should it print out if it's a character array that I don't put anything inside? Okay, so basically here we have just a bunch of blank spaces. Okay, so it does, there is no error, there is no runtime or runtime errors, and it just prints a bunch of blank spaces. And what happens if I want to print our third array, okay, which is a string array? Now string arrays, remember that strings are not primitive data types. Strings are considered objects, okay? So, and they work like objects in some of the occasions. So let's see what happens when it prints a string array. So if I don't have any elements, I'm not pointing to anything in the array, so I'm going to get a bunch of nulls. Okay? That is extremely important that you understand. When you create an array and you don't put any strings on it, then you get every single object inside is a null. Different from integers and characters and probably booleans that you will get another one. Let's say if we create a boolean array. Okay? And here we're going to say array 4, and I'm going to change this one to array 5. And let's see what happens. What if I print this type of array, a boolean array? So, it's interesting, because every time that you create a boolean array, it automatically puts in false. Okay? That's something that you should know in case that you have a problem and you know that the array is going to be filled in with all false values. Okay? That is very interesting. Okay, another way of displaying or traversing an array would be using an enhanced loop. So I'm going to delete my loop here, my for loop, and I'm going to create an enhanced loop. In this case, since it's a 1D array, I want to determine what are the elements inside the array. So I'm going to say, I'm going to hold up a variable called inC. So every time that I go to a position in the array, I'm going to hold a temp variable that's going to be C in my for loop. And for what array? I just say array number 5, which is the one that it's already initialized. Okay? Now this is an enhanced loop, and it's used to traverse an array of elements for a 1D array. It's either a list or a column or a row. Okay? In this case, if I say system.out.println, I say C, I am going to see all the elements in my array number 5. Okay? C is the integer number that I'm holding temporarily in each pass of my loop. So I have 2, 4, 6, 8, 10. So here I can get, this is an enhanced version of a for loop. Okay? So it's very simple. So you know that every time he's going to position 0, 1, 2, 3, and 4. So I'm going to every position. Now let's add, this is about 1D arrays. Now let's add a second D array, 2D array in our program. Let's create an integer array, but now it's going to be 2D. 2D means that we're going to have rows and columns. Okay? We're going to have rows and columns. And we're going to learn how to add numbers to rows and columns using a nested for loop, and we're also going to learn how to traverse a 2D array using enhanced for loops. Okay, we're going to call this array number 6. Okay, and it's going to be our new int array. I can make an array to be squared or a rectangle. I can, like, these numbers can be different. Right now I'm going to use a squared array. Okay? Okay, let's make this a little bit smaller so we can actually initialize our array. So array in position 6, it's going to be position 0, 0. It's going to be, let's put all the odd numbers, okay? Even in odd numbers, okay? In position 0, 1. Okay? So as you can see, we have our initializer list. I'm putting on every position an odd number. So it's going to be 1, 2, 3, 1, 3, 5, 7, 9, 11, 13, 15. If I want to see this array, I want to look at it, well, there are two ways. One is creating a nested for loop, then length, then, array6 dot length. And here's something that I want to teach you that you might find interesting. And this is the length, this is going to be the length of our columns. How many columns do I have? 0, 1, 2, 3. Okay, so I have the length of the columns. Okay. And in my nested for loop, because I need to create another for loop, here I want to find the length of the row. So in this case, what I'm going to do is that I'm going to put 0 or 1 or 2 because that is the column that I want to find the length of the row for. Or I can even use I, so it's determined by the original length of the columns, okay? So I dot length, and now I'm getting the length of the actual rows, okay? So here I create a nested for loop in order to look at all the elements in my array. Now it's interesting that I want to print this array. I want to print the elements of array 6 in position ij. Okay, so it's going to be position 0, 0. Okay, I'm going to show the position 0, 0. Then I'm going to show the position 0, 1, 0, 2. Then I'm going to go 1, 0, 1, 1, 1, 2. And then 2, 0, and so on and so forth until I do everything. Okay, but when I finish printing, I'm going to take this print line and I'm going to put print. When I finish printing the first row, I want to leave a row, blank row, or so I can see the other ones. Okay, so I'm going to print this really quick. Okay, and here I have my elements. Okay, here I would like to print them with a little bit more space. Leave a space here just for readability. So here I have my array. So here I have my array. It's 1, 3, 5, 7, 9, 11, 13, 15, 17. So this is how you can traverse using a nested for loop a 2D array. Okay? Now there's another way, and we can use an enhanced for loop to do this. But in this case, the outer for loop must hold a temporary array. Let's see how it looks. Okay? So I'm going to hold a temporary array of array 6. And then my nested for loop will actually hold the variable inside. Okay? Of B. Because B is also an array. And now I can print I can print C, and of course leave the space. It should be pretty much the same thing. So this would be the enhanced version of how to traverse a 2D array. So you hold a temporary array. Now inside that temporary array you print out each number, or create a temporary variable to print out the number. So there are two ways that I'm showing you how to traverse a 2D array. So you get exactly the same thing using this method. Okay? And there are other things that you should try out, like using for loops, swapping numbers between elements in an array, changing the position of all the elements in an array. There are so many things you can do. For example, in this array, there's something very particular. There's something called the major diagonal and the minor diagonal. The major diagonal would be 1, 9, and 17. And the minor diagonal would be 5, 9, and 13. Okay? Really quick, try to add the major diagonal and add the minor diagonal. In both cases, you got 27. Okay? So if you add the major diagonal and the minor diagonal of a numbered pattern, or a pattern of numbers, it can be odd, it can be even, it could be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and in a square array, you will get the same sum on the major diagonal and the minor diagonal. Okay? So as a as a as an example, you can try to add or sum the numbers in the major diagonal and sum the numbers in the minor diagonal. How to do that? Well, let's try to look at this example. Okay, in this case, I am going to change my for loop once again, and since I want to add the position 0, 0, 1, 1, 2, 2, I only need one for loop. And in my for loop, what I'm going to do is that outside I am going to create a variable called sum equals 0, so I can hold the sum of it, and I'm going to say that sum is going to be equal to sum plus array 6 in position what? I. So it's going to do, okay, 0, 0, 1, 1, 2, 2, and then I'm going to get all my numbers, and then I can just print out the numbers in my array or in the sum. Okay, so there you go. You got 27 as your major diagonal. You can do exactly the same, and you can do this as an exercise. It's find the minor diagonal. Okay, this is a good example of how to do that. Okay, another good exercise that we are asked sometimes is to change the order of the elements. So the last will be first, then second, then third, and so on and so forth. And you kind of have to like flip the array of the numbers. So that is a good example. That is a good exercise. So for that, you actually need, this is what we're going to do here, you actually need another array. You need a temp array. So we're going to create that temp array. It'll be called array 6 temp. Okay. And it has to be the same size as my original or the one that I need to swap. And what I'm going to do is that I'm going to put all these numbers or all this information from one array into the new one. Okay? And then I can actually take all those elements and make it equal to the other one. Okay, so as I was saying, in order to invert all the numbers in the array, we create a temporary array of the same size. And I already wrote this code so we can save some time. So we create a nested for loop that goes from 0 to the length and then of the columns, and then 0 to the length of the rows. And what we're going to do is that whatever is in position 0, 0 of my temp file is going to be the position of array length minus the position I'm getting minus 1. So if we go to case number 1, would be length minus 0 minus 1. So it's pretty much playing with arrays. You can do a bunch of things. I recommend that you work also with characters and strings. Many of the free response questions involve either arrays or array lists during the second part, the second option. Good luck with that, and if you have any questions, please let me know through a private thread on our discussion board.